It's June, it's Tuesday, that means the Athletics deal sheet has dropped for the week. Chelsea are looking for emotionally mature players to try and avoid more disciplinary issues for the next season. As far as targets coming into the club, only Morgan Rogers has been mentioned as a player that Chelsea are actively looking at. In terms of players that are leaving, there's a lot on the list that you would expect, but there's a lot of players that aren't on the list that might be a little bit concerning. As of right now, Fabrizio Romano says there is no contact from Real Madrid about signing Enzo Fernandez, and also that Chelsea are in no rush to sell Marc Cucurella, but if they did, they don't want it to be to a Premier League club. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And like I said, it's Tuesday, so we've got the Athletic deal sheet from Simon Johnson, so let's just get into it. So, what happened this week? Perhaps the most significant thing to take place is incoming manager Xabi Alonso paying a visit to the club's training ground along with the rest of the newly appointed backroom staff. This included Sebastian Pereira, Alberto Encinas, Benat Labayen and Ismail Camenfort Lopez. Alonso does not officially start his Chelsea tenure until July 1st, but this was an opportunity to check out what Cobham has to offer before the serious work begins. So we already knew about that, it's not transfer related, it's just Xabi Alonso getting his feet under the table, having a little look at the facilities and what he's going to be working with, and obviously getting his team familiar with it as well. So next up, how important is keeping or signing experience this summer? The fact that Chelsea are looking at players who are ready-made starters speaks volumes. It is not the case of signing someone older necessarily, but an individual who is accustomed to the pressures of a busy fixture schedule as well as performing at a high level. Chelsea are also looking for emotionally mature personnel, which is partly motivated by a desire to improve their disciplinary record. The club have finished bottom of the Premier League fair play table in 2 of the last 3 seasons. Record amount of red cards last season, by the way. As for the motivation for retaining players, there is a list of untouchables in the squad, which includes Reece James, Cole Palmer, Moises Caicedo, Levi Colwill, Esteval Willian, João Pedro and Josh Achiampong. The absence from this list of 2 of the most senior members of the squad in Enzo Fernandez and Marc Cucurella shows it is not written in stone that the longest serving players are certain to stay regardless. So 2 things to really have a look at there. This is more of the same of what we were hearing when Xabi Alonso came in, and to be fair, even when Liam Rosenior was still in tow, we're looking for emotionally mature players, right? And the disciplinary issues have been rife for a long time now. We got more red cards in last season than we either matched or beat the record in the Premier League for red cards in the season. Absolutely wild. People getting sent off all over the place, and almost always the first card was for dissent. That's so important, right? So the thing that's really important about that is you would think of a player like Diego Costa, for instance, and think, he was a bit of a bruiser and he had disciplinary issues. Diego Costa, in all of his time at Chelsea, only ever got 1 red card in an FA Cup game. What he was really good at was winding players up, getting that 1 yellow card that you know is kind of your safety, and then playing safe for the rest of the game. Because of the way that the rules have changed, refs have a lot more power than they used to, right? So now what's happening is players are getting yellow carded for dissent or time wasting a lot easier than they used to, but they're not still playing like they're on a yellow card. So that sort of thing is happening all the time. Like I say, stupid things like dissent or time wasting or whatever, and then they're making a rash challenge or a rash tackle in a game like you need to sometimes that might get you that first yellow card, but then they're getting sent off. Also, sometimes it's just for silly things. Also, sometimes maybe arguably they've been a little bit soft or whatever, but for the most part, it's not like there isn't a pattern, right? There is a pattern. So this also marries up with something that Xabi Alonso has said, that he wants to bring in mentality monsters. You need players that can keep their head on the pitch, and we need to bring some of those in as well. The second thing here is the list of untouchables. So it's a good list for the most part. It's the players you want to see staying around. Reece James obviously just signed a new deal. Cole Palmer, there's been a lot of, news throughout the whole season. Cole Palmer wants to go back to Manchester, but he's not going anywhere. Moises Caicedo, as you would expect. Levi Colwill, as you would expect. Esteval Willian, as you would expect. João Pedro, which, although we knew this already, but, there was all that stuff about Barcelona a little while ago before they bought Anthony Gordon, wasn't there? But the biggest one here is obviously Josh Achiampong. Again, that's news that came out a little while ago, but it's really interesting to see Josh Achiampong mentioned in the list with these players, and hopefully that means he's going to get a lot more game time this season. As for Enzo Fernandez and Marc Cucurella, that just is what it is. It's not really a surprise. Enzo Fernandez, we're going to get onto him a little bit later. He's going to be a lot more difficult to sell at the end of the day. There's only a few clubs that can come in for him, but as far as Marc Cucurella goes, he's a hot property for Spanish teams at the moment. Barcelona and Atletico Madrid really, really interested. He's not going to cost the world. We will still make a profit on him, and ultimately, I do expect to see Marc Cucurella go, which saddens me. Enzo Fernandez feels a bit more like a 50-50 at the moment. And guys, if you've made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. And guys, I'm aiming for 4K subs before the transfer window opens in just under a week, so hit that button and let's go! So to continue on with Simon Johnson's deal sheet, we continue with what positions or players are Chelsea looking at. Chelsea want a minimum of 2 signings who can play from the get-go. That does not mean that they will not make more transfers as the summer progresses, especially as replacements may need to be found for those who leave. The priority is to acquire a centre-back and a versatile attacking player. They are working on 3 or 4 targets, but there is a recognition that the World Cup could have an impact on when deals are done. Oh, that'd be rough, wouldn't it, if we wait until after the World Cup? Chelsea are one of the clubs keen on Aston Villa's Morgan Rogers and are aware they face stiff competition for his signature. The club have yet to confirm an agreement has been reached for Strasbourg's Valentin Barco, who has already confirmed he is leaving the League One side. Sources in France expect the move to happen though. Chelsea did make a basic check on Ibrahima Konate's situation after the defender opted to leave Liverpool rather than sign a new contract. However, the 27-year-old is expected to join Real Madrid. The squad is already going to be strengthened by the arrival of at least 2 players. Winger Giovanni Quenda is officially joining from Sporting CP, having agreed a 40 million switch in March last year. Goalkeeper Mike Penders, who was bought from Genk in 2024, is going to be involved for the first time. The Belgian, who is with his national team at the World Cup, has spent the last 2 seasons at Genk on loan and on loan at Strasbourg, respectively. Striker Emmanuel Omega is also going to complete his move from Strasbourg, which was put in place last September. So this echoes generally what we've been hearing in the last week, although there was an update last week saying as well as a centre-back and a left-sided versatile attacker, we're also potentially looking for a deep-lying midfielder. But yeah, we 100% need a new centre-back. We definitely need a better option for a left-sided attacker. The centre-back options we're not hearing a lot about. Lacroix seems to be the one mentioned at the moment. Spurs are really going in on negotiating for Jan-Paul van Heck, so unfortunately maybe he's not going to be on the table. I'm not sure if he's one that De Zerbi worked with before while he was at Brighton, but I guess that's possible. But yeah, all the signs at the moment seem to be pointing towards Morgan Rogers. Now, the difficult thing with Morgan Rogers, as it says here on the deal sheet, there are lots of clubs that are going to be interested in him. We're hearing about Arsenal, we're hearing about Bayern Munich. I think I've even seen PSG at some point. So it's going to be difficult because all of these teams are in the Champions League, right? So, and even Aston Villa are in the Champions League at the moment. So it's going to be difficult, but not impossible. I guess largely it's going to come down to contract negotiations, which in itself will make it difficult because all of our players have just taken a pay cut because they're not in the Champions League anymore. We don't have European competition. I don't know, man. I don't know. I really, really want Morgan Rogers. Like, he would be my choice for that versatile left-sided attacker. I think he'd really add something to our squad that we don't already have. But it's definitely going to be a difficult one. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. The Valentin Barco one, I expect that to happen. He's literally said goodbye to Strasbourg already. The deal, I'm pretty sure we've had a here we go from Fabrizio Romano that I reported on as well. That seems just to be a matter of time. The Ibrahima Konate thing, I'm just genuinely not surprised at all. He apparently is going to be on up to 400k a month. That's in euros, so it's obviously a little bit less. But at Real Madrid, he's going to be on bucks, and he's moving for a free transfer. As good as a player as he is, don't get me wrong, he's definitely an upgrade on a lot of players we've got at the moment. But you can't bring someone in on 300k a week, even if it's on a free contract, because that is going to put players' noses out of joint. So I'm not surprised about that. And then obviously it goes on to mention Giovanni Quenda and Mike Penders will be joining. It does also tersely mention Emmanuel Omega. We're going to get on to him in a little bit. Giovanni Quenda is an interesting one. So I saw something yesterday that was interesting about Giovanni Quenda. Is supposedly the reason that he agreed to join Chelsea and not Man United when he did, albeit Ruben Amorim went there and Ruben Amorim was kind of the one that discovered him, was because he didn't want to play as a wing back, right? And if we get Xabi Alonso, chances are he might end up playing as a wing-back. So is that a problem waiting to happen? I do still think he's, definitely got a shot. If we play a 4 at the back, 100% he can play on that left or right wing. He's a really good creator. I think maybe the difference with Xabi Alonso's 3 at the back system compared to Ruben Amorim's 3 at the back system is the wing-backs in Xabi Alonso's system were massive, massive GA contributors, right? Like 40 plus GA from Grimaldo and Jeremy Frimpong in their title-winning season. Whereas I think Ruben Amorim in general was a bit more of a defensive coach and didn't necessarily rely on the wing backs to get as involved in the creative side or the scoring side. So hopefully that's not going to be an issue. Mike Penders, that's just what it is, isn't it? It is the shootout is going to happen between Mike Penders and Robert Sanchez. I expect Mike Penders to win that, to be honest, just based on his ball playing ability, and his shot stopping is not so significantly worse than Robert Sanchez is. Also, at 20 years old, he's 20 years old. Absolutely wild. you would expect him to improve and get better very quickly, as he has done for the last few seasons anyway. Next up, which players could be leaving? Cucurella is the subject of interest from Atletico Madrid and Barcelona. Chelsea will not stand in the way of the left-back leaving Stamford Bridge should a club meet their asking price. Fernandez's future is also uncertain. Chelsea are not actively looking to sell the Argentina international, but have put a £120 million valuation on the midfielder. One of the strikers behind João Pedro in the pecking order will be sold. It could be a choice between Liam Delap and Nicholas Jackson, who was on loan at Bayern Munich last season. Jackson is expected to be looked at in pre-season and does have a chance to be part of Alonso's squad. Omega, who remained at Strasbourg last season, is not guaranteed to be part of the 26-27 plans yet. So pre-season's getting really interesting all of a sudden, isn't it? It's like normally pre-season, and especially with a new manager as well, pre-season is normally just about what does the manager's team look like? What sort of formation, what sort of setup, what is our football going to look like? But what we're seeing at the moment, especially with the striker situation, is this shootout that seems to be developing between Liam Delap, Nicholas Jackson and Emmanuel Omega. Now, in my head before, I really like the look of Omega. I think he was unlucky with injuries last season, but in his best patches has been absolutely phenomenal. What it's now starting to look like is instead of a straight shootout between Nicholas Jackson and Liam Delap, Omega could be involved in that as well. So I don't think we'll see much of João Pedro in pre-season, to be honest, and now it's very much starting to look like it's going to be trying to figure out whether Liam Delap, Nicholas Jackson or Emmanuel Omega suit the squad. The Liam Delap thing's really interesting, right? Because personally, as of right now, based on his last season, 2 goals and 41 appearances, yeah, I'd be like, just get rid of him. It's time for him to go. But if Xabi Alonso comes in, looks at Liam Delap and is like, you were being used the wrong way, I'm going to use you this way and it's going to be better. Like, we have to put our faith in the manager at the end of the day, don't we? Nicholas Jackson, I feel like, is probably the most nailed on to stay based on the versatility side of it. Like, he actually was playing left wing for Bayern Munich sometimes last season as well. Versatile player, knows the Premier League. It seems like he's kind of, for me, seems like the second one at the moment, and then maybe the shootout becomes between Omega and Liam Delap. Emmanuel Omega has been apparently asked by Crystal Palace for a loan, so it could, he won't be sold. It will definitely be a loan, and he kind of burnt a lot of bridges with the Strasbourg fans and in his time over there, so I wouldn't expect to see him go back to Strasbourg. I think a Premier League loan would be good for him if we don't keep him. Personally, like I say, for me right now, if it's like Delap or Omega, I'm like, yeah, sell Delap, we give Omega a chance. But ultimately, it is going to come down to what kind of profile Xabi Alonso wants as a striker, and if he backs Delap, then I'll give him another season, but I'd really rather not have to if it's not necessary. So the article continues. Backup keeper Philip Jorgensen wants to leave to get more game time, and Chelsea are prepared to let him go for the right fee. Defender Axel Disasi, who enjoyed a good loan at West Ham in the second half of the season, is on the for sale list. Winger Tyreek George should also leave permanently, whether that is Everton triggering an option in the loan agreement they had with Chelsea in the January transfer window or going elsewhere. Permanent departure for another loanee, David Fofana, is also earmarked. The forward had spells at Faith, Karagamruk and Strasbourg during 25-26. So none of these are a surprise at all, and the only very, very slightly worrying thing is these players feel like ones that were all pretty much a given, right? It was just like a given. It's like, we've got so many players in the squad that fans, we're all talking about it at the moment. Who do we want to see go out? We know that we need to shift players because we're not in Europe, so we have to thin the squad out. We've got an outrageous amount of centre-backs on the books at the moment. So a little bit worrying there. Philip Jorgensen, yeah, no one's going to miss Philip Jorgensen. Axel Disasi has been in the bomb squad for like 2 seasons now, so absolutely needs to go. Tyreek George, I think just makes sense. Academy player. I don't think we need to upgrade that side rather than make it so we've got 3 20-year-olds vying for that left-sided position when none of them have really proven that they can just do it in the Premier League yet. And David Fofana is another bomb squad guy, right? So the 4 on here, like, yeah, okay, cool, kind of expected that, but a little bit worrying, isn't it? So, Pice also posted this on Twitter after reading the deal sheet. Players that could leave mentioned in the Athletic FC deal sheet: Enzo, Cucurella, Jorgensen, Disasi, George, and one of Jackson or Delap. Nothing on Badiashile, Garnacho, Neto, Tosin, Chalobah, Fofana, etc. So this is kind of the thing, isn't it? This is kind of the thing. Now, it also said right at the beginning of the deal sheet that it's not saying that no other players could leave or no other players could be brought in, but it's, these are just what is being looked at the moment. I guess they're prioritising these players first, right? Like, if you think about Enzo and Cucurella, you will make some profit on them, and their wages are obviously quite big, so it's probably more important to get them off the books first. Jorgensen just needs to go. Disasi will make some profit, but probably not much. George is pure profit, so that's important. And then you've got Jackson or Delap. But I wouldn't expect to see us wait for the Jackson Delap thing before we start signing more players. But like I say, the worrying thing here, Benoit Badiashile feels like he needs to go. Didn't get into the squad at all for the last few months. Garnacho kind of feels like he needs to go. Jamie Gittins, I understand, is very difficult to sell. He's younger and also spent a lot of the season injured, so he's kind of difficult to shift. Garnacho didn't have a good season. He didn't have, he had a better season than Liam Delap, for instance. You know what I mean? But still, he's the kind of player that we need to be shifting on. Neto, I think it's going to be an interesting one because he's one of the more experienced players in the squad. So even just that on his own, Xabi Alonso might want to keep him around. Tosin, I've heard already about Tosin sticking around. Chalobah is one I would really like to keep, but he's definitely going to be worth a lot if he wants to leave. Fofana, you would have thought, there's just so many players that we need to think about shifting, essentially, aren't they? And none of them have been mentioned in the deal sheet as of yet. And this is something that I've talked a little bit about before. The thing is, with Xabi Alonso, his greatest strength that we've seen so far from his time at Bayer Leverkusen and Real Madrid in particular is developing players, right? We're all ready to write these guys off because, we've just seen them be terrible for the last few seasons or whatever. But Xabi Alonso took some reasonably average players and turned them into absolute monsters, right? Victor Boniface was not amazing under Xabi Alonso. The wing-backs in Jeremy Frimpong and Grimaldo, the likes of Granit Xhaka, a lot of players at Leverkusen were not particularly really highly well thought of, and he turned them into these absolute machines with his system. And then you think about the Real Madrid thing, right? You got the likes of Arda Güler, for instance, who, was really young, had been bought for a reasonable amount of money, wasn't getting any opportunities or any game time at all. Xabi Alonso comes in, turns him into a demon. Do I see that happening with Badiashile? Well, I don't know. Garnacho, I guess potentially, but I don't really think so. Neto, quite possibly. Tosin, I think there's a role for Tosin. If he's willing not to play a lot, he's really liked around the dressing room. He's obviously one of the older players. He is the only other player that Enzo Maresca deemed capable of playing the passing centre-back role when Levi Colwill got injured as well. So maybe there's something in that. Chalobah, I would hope he'd want to keep Fofana. Maybe he sees something in Fofana, because Fofana's issue isn't really ability, it's like attitude and mentality, do you know what I mean? So it's a difficult one, but I guess at the end of the day it all comes down to Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso will come in and he will find out everything he can about these players and figure out if he thinks he can do with them what he did to his players at Real Madrid, who turned out really well, and obviously the ones at Bayer Leverkusen. So it's a little bit worrying, but I guess transfers will be made first, and that will definitely, affect some of these players for sure. And I do not expect all of these players to stay one way or the other. But it is just a little bit worrying that we've just got to wait. We've just got to wait until Xabi Alonso has profiled these players and decided which ones he thinks he can work with. Right, so just to finish up a couple of tweets from Pice via Fabrizio Romano. Enzo Fernandez latest, there is nothing so far from Real Madrid. They are currently looking at different players. It remains probably a dream move for the player, but Chelsea received nothing as of yet. The club and Enzo are still no closer to finding a salary agreement. So the interesting thing is here, with Cucurella, there's been no talks about salary agreements or new deals or at all, but Enzo Fernandez has been trying to negotiate a better deal for a little while now. So of the two, although I would rather it was the other way around, I'd rather sell Enzo and keep Cucurella, it looks like if one of them is going to stay, it's going to be Enzo Fernandez. The other issue with Enzo Fernandez is the £120 million price tag. Yes, he's had a really good season for us, but is a Real Madrid, a PSG, or a Bayern Munich, or someone, with that, is someone going to pay that absolute outrageous amount of money for Enzo Fernandez? It yet remains to be seen. It feels like Real Madrid would be the club, but with Jose Mourinho coming in, Florentino Perez winning the elections, they're going to be making lots of moves to fix lots of areas in the squad. If Jose Mourinho really, really wants Enzo Fernandez, then maybe that's something we'll see. But at the moment, just with the amount of money it feels like kind of a 50-50. He actually might end up sticking around. And Pice posted this via Fabrizio Romano as well. Still early days on Cucurella. Chelsea not in a rush to sell. Would have to be a good proposal for both the player and CFC. Keep an eye on Spain. I've seen a couple of other tweets saying that we'd want at least 50 mil for him, which, yeah, fine. Do you know what I mean? It's less than we paid for him, but we've had him for a few seasons, so it would represent a profit. We can't keep Marc Cucurella if he wants to go. It's different than it is with Enzo Fernandez. There's no negotiations on the table, so this has probably been the case for a while. If Barcelona come in with 50 mil plus, he'll go. If Atletico Madrid, if they come in with 50 mil plus, he'll probably go, and that will become an area that we might need to strengthen depending on how Xabi Alonso feels about Yoel Hato and the incoming Valentin Barco. So guys, that's it. Let me know what you think about everything. There's a couple of good things, a couple of worrying things. I like the fact that we're still, we're openly being linked with Morgan Rogers. I do think it will be difficult, but I really, really hope we just kind of throw the book at him, man. I wouldn't want to see like crazy amounts of money because, like I say, disharmony in the squad is such a thing. He needs to come in on the same as whatever Cole Palmer's on, doesn't he? Based on his Premier League performance, if that's enough for him. But then you've got the likes of Bayern Munich and Arsenal that obviously league winners and in the Champions League that can pay a lot more. If it just comes down to money, then he probably won't choose Chelsea. But if it comes down to the project, like for instance, Bayern Munich's a great team, but obviously playing in the Premier League is its own monster, isn't it? So I would hope that at least Morgan Rogers want to stick around in the Premier League. The Arsenal thing, like I say, it's just money. And if Chelsea's project with Xabi Alonso and how Xabi Alonso wants to use Morgan Rogers, it appeals to him, I think that's the thing that will sell it. For instance, you look at Arsenal's last season. Now, he could have a conversation with Arteta and maybe this is going to change, but does Morgan Rogers want to... Yes, they won the Premier League and I'm not disputing that, but as an attacking midfielder, a versatile attacking midfielder, does Morgan Rogers want to play in a team that wins their games via penalties and set pieces and long throws and corner kicks and stuff like that? Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily conducive to his best abilities. So obviously there's the allure of the money because they'll be able to pay good money. There's the allure of being the Premier League winners and there's the allure of being the Champions League. But as a player, does he want to be in that system? You look at the likes of Martin Odegaard and, Eze. You kind of look at these guys and they've not exactly been unleashed in an attacking sense in the last season, albeit Arsenal won the league, like I say, not taking that away from them at all. But just as a player, maybe that's kind of the only hope I think we have of signing Morgan Rogers is if Xabi Alonso says, I want you to be an intricate and integral cog in my attacking machine, rather than going to Arsenal and be like, yeah, okay, cool, you just got to kind of hold the ball a bit while Declan Rice scores a free kick or, like our centre-back score all the goals or whatever. So it's hopium and copium from me 100% because I realise what an uphill struggle it would be to sign Morgan Rogers based on the propositions from the other clubs that he might be linked with, but hopefully Xabi Alonso being in tow and seeing him as, like I say, an integral, important part in our attacking lineup could sell it. So nice one, guys. Thank you very much for sticking around until the end of the video. If you did, I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.